So you've probably already met our next speaker, Texas House District 19 candidate, Dwain Handley, because Dwain is a member of our club, and he comes to a lot of our events over the last few months. I think we've all had an opportunity to meet him, and we're always happy when he's here. Just a little bit about Dwain's background. He's a native of Beaumont, Texas. He earned bachelor's and master's degrees in finance from Texas A&M. He's worked a lot of different jobs in the banking industry, the telecom industry, personal fitness training. He got involved in political activism following the Sandy Hook massacre. And he's now got considerable experience in grassroots organization and winning, including flipping a red district in North Texas. So he brings all those skills and experience with him. He moved to Cottonwood Shores in Burnett County back in 2022, and of course he now chairs his local precinct. He won the Democratic primary for State House District 19 in March, and he's now facing Ellen Troxclair, the incumbent, in November. And our club, of course, has enthusiastically endorsed Dwain and raised some money for him, and so we're behind him all the way. But win or lose, Dwain's focus going forward is going to be on grassroots organizing, getting out the vote, re-engaging Democratic voters who've checked out of the political process. That's a theme that you'll hear from him all the time. And fighting to preserve democracy. I'm sure we'll hear more about this in a minute. So please welcome our next state representative, our friend Dwain.
Jack, thank you so much for that, and I will finish inside of 10 minutes because you gave about half of the speech. And hold on.
I got you here.
I'm going to set this timer.
I got it.
There's going to be timers going
so
on.
I think you got a little bit ahead of me. Yes, I am Dwain Handley, and I'm running. This is my first time to run for office after being an activist and a precinct chair and a field organizer for the better part of 10 or 11 years. And I'm so glad that the subject today is protecting democracy, because that's my number one issue, is democracy. I didn't want to run for office. I wanted to work on somebody else's campaign, and then here at HD 19, it didn't look like we were going to have a candidate. So I said, well, I had already become a precinct chair. Is that going to be enough? Is it okay for me to sit back in the chair knowing what I know about organizing and about campaigning and just watch democracy die? And the answer had to be no. It's not okay. So I raised my hand, I got on the primary ballot, and I got out there. It kind of was a good thing that I had a contested primary because it required me to get out and learn about this district. I was very surprised about some things, like how much of Travis County is still rural. The district is a combination of suburban, exurban, and rural, and it's changing rapidly. And so you've got a mix of different kind of voter constituencies to talk to, but I think they have some common themes. Teresa talked about how some of these rural voters are tired. I'm running into that. They're tired. And we're talking about soft Republicans here, but they want grown-ups. They're tired of all this 8th grade behavior, this adolescent business. Little stunts which are harmful to people, like, enticing them onto buses and airplanes and shipping them off to far-flung corners of the country. I mean, what kind of a decent human being does that? But democracy is my number one issue, and I care about gun violence. I care about women's reproductive rights. I care about decent, humane immigration. We need immigrants in order to continue feeding our economy, because the birth rate in the United States isn't enough to replace retiring workers with new ones coming along. We need, and some of these people coming across the border are doctors and accountants. They're professional people, and they're leaving places like Venezuela, which is falling apart faster than you can sneeze, and we're treating them like animals. We need them, and we need to honor that. We ought to be welcoming them. Education, just look at what these Republicans are doing to education. For a very long time now, billionaires have not had to pay taxes. And in fact, in a lot of cases, they're getting a check from the government. It's your money and mine, that we're just, here's free money, and they're swimming in idle cash, they don't know what to do with it, and so one of the great opportunities that they're finding, investment opportunities, is to privatize public services, like the post office and prisons, and yes, our schools. Here's what happens when you privatize a public service. When it's a public service, it's not required to generate a profit, right? You raise enough money in taxes to pay for it, and you cover the cost, and you hope to break even. And if you don't break even, maybe you either cut your expenses a little bit or you raise revenues a little bit. But when you privatize it, all of a sudden it adds the imperative of profit. And two things have to happen in order for this previous nonprofit activity to turn into a for-profit activity. You have to increase revenue, which is what you pay for it, and you have to decrease costs, which represents the benefits that you get from it. So you're going to be paying more and getting less, also that the billionaire can line his pockets. And this is just wrong. And in Texas, that's what they're doing with the voucher scheme. That's exactly what that's about. It's about taking taxpayer money, giving it to people who largely don't need it, so that they can send their kids to private schools, and the public schools are going to end up with less money because of this per student cap that we have on it. First of all, we need to raise that per student cap and keep this money in the school districts that are raising, because this is your money. And Austin and Greg Abbott are taking it and putting it into what amounts to a slush fund to do whatever they want with, including paying it to the billionaires so that they can hatch this voucher scheme. We need to flip 12 seats in the state house to have a Democratic legislature. And if we get that, the voucher scheme's dead. And I think, we gotta work hard on that. I am looking forward to organizing this district, and especially the Travis County portion of it. The lion's share of gettable votes in HD 19 are here in Travis County. And Teresa and I are talking about how we can coordinate on some of the precincts that we have in common, and like, she's gonna put on her t-shirt and I'm gonna put on mine, and we're gonna walk door to door together and talk about, what each of us can do, both in Washington and in Austin. I'm working on a new model for organizing that's more appropriate for red districts, especially hard to get districts. We do have to re-engage the non-voter, the voter who has checked out, because they're the only remaining untapped resource. And I want to do that. It goes against all the conventional wisdom. So much of so many professional Democrats have to raise money, they have to pay block walkers and phone bankers and all of that, and they just can't reach those voters because they're limited resources. But what we can do with volunteers, yes, it still costs money, we have to print materials, but volunteers live here, you mean it, and you want to flip this district so badly. There's just a lot more fire in the belly, I think. And it just goes a lot further. We reach a lot more voters, and we've really got to make the case to these independents and unaffiliated voters, because they're all that we've got left. I'm going back and looking just in my van of people who were registered here to vote now, who were also registered in Texas 4 years ago. Do you know what the voter turnout among those voters has been? In what it was in 2020? 81%. These people vote. There's not, the only real non-voters that we've got are in that middle group, and even they're over 60%. In a lot of places across the country, that's considered robust. Well, if we've got it at over 80% now, why not 90? It's just another 10. I mean, that sounds impossible in most places, but rural counties vote, and I want to talk to these folks. A lot of these folks that have moved in from out of state, I think it's up to like 27,000 new voter registrations since 2020 in this district, and they're soft Republicans. And if they're coming from places that don't have our extremism, I think we can talk to them about things like reproductive liberty. Schools. We can talk to them about schools, and about what's right and what's wrong with what we're going on. This is one of the wealthiest states in the nation, one of the wealthiest economies in all of the world, and our schools are dragging up the rear. in terms of education quality. There is utterly no excuse for that. And I would like to see by the end of this decade, instead of being in the bottom 2 or 3, moving us up to the top 2 or 3. And there isn't any reason we can't do it if we want to. And Democrats want to. And so we need Democratic majorities. We need to flip the state house this year, work on the state senate from here on out. 2 years from now, boot Greg Abbott out of office. Vicki Goodwin's going to be on that. God, there's so much more that I can say here, but we've got about a minute left.
Minute 15, minute and 9 seconds.
Well, I thought maybe, why don't we go ahead and open it up for some questions, because I know you all have some. Marie was talking about voter registration, and I think that's probably more of a state level issue when it comes to our schools, when it comes to our public schools. I think that's a great bill to introduce into the legislature, that school presidents, high school principals, must be deputized voter registrars. I think that's an excellent idea.
I just have one comment to make on that. I'm pretty close with our superintendent here from other groups that I work with.
Okay.
And that's one of my jobs this summer that I gave myself, is to contact him to make sure that he lets Stu Taylor know that there will be voter registration. Stu Taylor is the principal of high school.
Yeah, yeah.
And make sure that he knows that we're watching.
Well, and here's another
I
idea.
won't do it as a Democrat. I'll
Here's
do it as
another
a
idea.
Democrat.
You know, a high school senior can be deputized to register voters.
Absolutely.
How would it be to have, VDRs in every high school, say, at the lunch table, in the cafeteria every day, saying, are you within 6 months of being 18?
That's what we've done it at lunch before.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
Recruit the student council members as the League of Women Voters, because it has to be approached as non-party.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course.
So to engage the student council members, they're gonna be the most impactful.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, anyone?
So in your
Pardon?
rural discussions,
Yeah.
Bennett was really good at calling out the fact that the hospitals are closing because Abbott continues to reject federal dollars.
Absolutely.
Texas rejected federal dollars for SNAP.
Right.
City schools are providing lunches and breakfasts for children, but not in the rural counties.
Right.
Will that be a major part of your platform?
Well, it needs to be. I mean, you're absolutely right. I would like to get, I don't know if any kind of study has been done on this, but how many of our rural hospitals would still be open today if we'd accepted Medicaid expansion?
I think the Texas Tribune did a story on that.
That'd be, okay, if you can find that, send it to me, okay? I think that's a different way of looking at it than saying prospectively that rural hospitals are gonna close, because so many of them already have. We can do that on all kinds of things. A little meme that I made doesn't necessarily have to do specifically with Texas, but it's a picture that I found of a couple of grandparents with, their grandchildren sitting on their knee, and how many of us have ever stopped to give a word of thanks for wars not fought?
Exactly.
How could it have been? How would it be today if Bush v. Gore had been decided correctly? All of world history pivoted on that moment. And I'm still, I don't like to say that I'm bitter, but I'm pretty seriously hacked off about that. We'd be in a very different world today. So,
Instead of saying thank you, asking how are you doing to our veterans?
right. That is good. Well, and somebody else has gone up there and said, don't say thank you for your service when you're going to turn around and stick a fork in their side. Let's have something more than just empty words. All right, well, thank you all so much.